There are some big movements on the battlefield. Ukrainians and Russians both are moving most of their troops away from the Kherson front to support offensives in the other fronts. Ukrainian Army Command let us know yesterday that Russians will be using these troops to support 3 different offensives. First of all, southern Ukraine, we have the settlement of Vuhledar. It is under Ukrainian control right now, but Russians will use the troops from Kherson to take this settlement and push deeper into Ukraine from the south. The second axis Russian will put the Kherson troops is Avdiivka. This is Ukrainian-held settlement and Russians want to take it and push deeper from Donbass into eastern Ukraine, connecting perhaps with the southern grouping and circle some Ukrainian troops here. Well, the plans are big, but the execution is, you know how it is. And the third axis they will put the Kherson troops is in Luhansk. They will try to take Liman, this settlement right here. From the Severodonetsk axis, they will try to take this settlement. Again, the plan is to push pretty deep into Ukrainian lines. I haven't seen Russians doing this for months. I have seen them only abandon Kharkiv front and then abandon Kherson front. Now they suddenly have these 3 new axes they want to use these Kherson troops on. Time will tell if they succeed. Ukrainians and Russians in the Kherson front, both of them, I don't think they will cross the river or launch any offensive operations over this river. Russians are trying to make Kherson into the next Mariupol. They're trying to bombard it, but Ukraine is countering this with HIMARS. From Kherson, this is the reach of HIMARS. Every artillery position Russia has or every command center, ammunition warehouse will be targeted by HIMARS. So for the Russians to bombard Kherson is quite difficult because Ukrainians have these HIMARS in the south. But they're trying, and Kherson is taking some heavy damage right now. It is not as heavy as Mariupol, but it's still suffering. The city is on a verge of humanitarian catastrophe. And Ukrainian government right now is pulling the city out of it step by step. They're fighting every day. As we can see, this HIMARS range almost reaches the Azov Sea, meaning Russians only have this narrow corridor from Mariupol to Crimea to move their logistics. Otherwise, Ukrainians will target it. Russian logistics in the south is really problematic, mostly thanks to HIMARS. And Ukraine is doing the same thing they have always done, and it has been so successful. They just chip away Russian logistics, one stockpile, one logistics convoy at a time, and it's working. The weather is bad, it's raining, it's muddy, sometimes it's this watery snow that's coming down. This is why in the north and in the east, offensive operations are almost impossible for both sides because tanks will get stuck in the mud, everything gets stuck, even people get stuck in the mud. A few days ago, Russia launched another major missile attack against Ukraine. They shot out over 70 missiles, out of which Ukraine brought down 51. But the ones that connected to the targets did a lot of damage. Out of these 70 missiles, 30 were shot to Kiev. So almost half were shot to one place. Why concentrate so many missiles on one place? Russia wants to overwhelm the Kievian air defense because it is the best in the country. They need to use a lot of missiles on that target. Otherwise, Kievan air defense will take them all down. Supposedly, Kievan air defense took down 21 of these 30 missiles, and the 9 that connected left city without electricity or water for some time. We have this video from a Kievan hospital of surgeons trying to perform a heart surgery on a child, and they're using flashlights to keep the light on. Every surgeon has a battery that he carries with him all the time, because you never know when the power's gonna go out. If you're in the middle of the surgery, you gotta finish it. We all know the situation about established titles. I found out, like most of you, a few days ago, and my friends, I am sorry. Today I don't have a sponsor for that reason. I want to read you Patreon names. These are the biggest patrons who have supported me the most. I will read you 5 names, butchering them with my Estonian pronunciation. Justin Lamp, Ole Jon Bjorkum, Hellam Pak, Brent Wilson, Jochen. Thank you to these 5 people for supporting the channel, and I apologize for everything. If you know, you know. I recently uploaded a podcast with Combat Veteran Reacts. Link is in the description below. In the span of 1 week, you will get a podcast with Natasha's Adventures. So go and subscribe to my podcast channel to be notified about the podcast. This is Bakhmut. But by the looks of it, it's World War I, trench warfare. Wagner has been bombarding and pushing this direction for months. Ukrainians stubbornly hold on, rotating their troops in and out, something the Russians don't do. Bakhmut will go down in history as the battle where the Ukrainians held back the Russians for the longest period of time. They will make movies about this battle. But it's not over yet. The Wagner company is sending wave after wave of their prisoners to lure out Ukrainian artillery positions and exhaust their small arms ammunition. This is a Ukrainian soldier who has been rotated out, taking off his boot after being 5 days in a mud. Without rotation, this would turn into trench foot, a condition known from World War I where soldiers had their feet constantly for weeks in mud and water and they started to rot off. The FBI put Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of Wagner, on the wanted list with 250,000 reward for information about his whereabouts. Reminds me of the Wild West, all these wanted posters, wanted and the face of the criminal and bounty hunters going after them. I would love to see some bounty hunters going after Prigozhin. 12 Ukrainian soldiers were released from Russian captivity. Among them, 4 soldiers from the Navy, 2 National Guardsmen, 2 border guards, and also 3 civilians. These exchanges are happening more and more. Russia has a lot of Ukrainian personnel in Russia in captivity and also deported to Russian cities. Russia has control over that personnel, over that population, so Ukraine needs as much leverage as possible to get their people back. Belarusian Foreign Minister Mackay has passed away unexpectedly. He was 64 and he held the position from 2012. Mackay was named the possible successor for Lukashenko. He was one of the few not under direct Russian influence. Rumors say he was poisoned. The circumstances around his death are unknown. Rumors also say that this might be a hint for Lukashenko. According to sources within the Russian military leadership, the Kremlin has made up a plan of dragging Belarus into this conflict. This plan involves intimidating Lukashenko, forcing him to join the war, or outright eliminating him. After taking Lukashenko out, his duties will be passed on to General Secretary Stanislav Zas, who is fully loyal to the Russian regime. Zas will immediately announce the Belarusian accession into the Russian Federation as an autonomous state, the merger of these two countries into one country. The propaganda or the reasons for this would be the threat from Poland and NATO, and then a second invasion of Ukraine from the north, from the Belarus, would begin. Taking Kiev, part 2. We have an intercepted phone call. You know I like them, and I know you like them. This is a Russian serviceman talking about lawlessness in Donetsk Oblast. There are some shocking revelations here, so be ready.
Да, блядь, опять влетает снарядами.
Два?
Да хуй поймешь, блядь, уже, блядь. Наши, то, блядь, не наши, тут не поймешь уже, блядь, уже все голова едет.
Блядь, когда это закончится, Сереж, все?
Я не знаю. Я уже устал вообще.
Это что, бомбят?
Это выстрел, да.
Блядь, вроде Украина такая маленькая, почему это все так долго-то? Ты мне говорил, то, что вы 8 числа ждали выборов и что?
His Russian girlfriend is obviously watching the Russian news because Ukraine is so small. Why is it taking so long? Because Russian propaganda has been feeding the Russian people that Ukraine will be taken no matter what, and the Russian army is the strongest and the most powerful. Russian people are having really a hard time accepting Russian losses because it goes against the propaganda they are fed.
Толку.
Нету толку. Рота 96 человек была, сейчас, блядь, полтинник остался. Даже уже меньше, по-моему. Мы в ебаной жопе, нахуй, просто. Да хуя чего было, бегало, дрона, блядь.
В смысле ты от дрона бегал, блядь, который, как ты говорил, бомбы сбрасывают?
Да, 3 гранаты скинули, блядь. Да тут пи***ц вообще. Ты чё, блядь, 21 век, тут всякая хуйня, нахуй. Почему это чеченские, блядь, кто прошел Чечню, не хотят вообще сюда ехать? Что здесь пиздец? Я даже хохлов не видел ни разу. А, нет, один раз видел. 7 человек. Но мы их с пулемета...
Ohol is like a Russian term for Ukrainian, and I've not seen Ohols once, which means this guy has been on the front and he's like, I haven't seen the enemy even. It's 21st century. The drones are everywhere. I'm getting shot at, but I don't see anybody. He's very frustrated. The company is at 50% capacity, which is almost incapacitated as a fighting force.
Двоих убили, 5 ушли.
У нас совхоза парня привезли.
Конечно, мы на войне, тут все было. Тут уже не знаешь, чего ожидать. Иногда свои же в тебя же, блядь, долбы стреляют. потому что им не те координаты дают.
Yeah, Russians have a lot of blue on blue because to avoid blue on blue, you need a lot of coordination between units and you need excellent communications from all levels. But communication has been one of the weakest links in the Russian military. They have gone to open communications months ago because they were lacking radios, because, you know, Russian military equipment list, there were no radios. So Ukrainians are tapping these radios, they're listening to them, and Russians are ordering fire at anything they see. And sometimes it's their own unit.
Сегодня писали там эти женщины опять вот в группе-то в этой. Короче, там такой скандал, блядь. Одна пишет, нам пришло 132 тысячи, другая пишет, да какие деньги, лишь бы типа здоровые, живые все вернулись.
Да, конечно, нахуй деньги не нужны. А заберите нахуй деньги, вы повезите меня сейчас домой, блядь, все. Хотя бы просто до Ростова меня довезите, я, блядь, там добежу.
Вот куда мы хотели ехать, а Аня говорит, что там мост крымский взорвали, блядь.
Да, они, блядь, ебают ракеты в Россию, нахуй. Я говорю, если сюда никто бы не поехал, вот эти, кто мобилизованный, блядь, они бы, блядь, уже у границ не стояли.
See, this is what the Russian troops from the front think. They are giving Ukrainians a lot of credit. Ukrainians would be already at the border shelling Moscow. This shows you what Russians think when they arrive in the front line or before when they arrive. Before they're like, Россия, русский мир, we're the strongest. And after that, it all comes crumbling down.
У нас бы там было. Они бы и Москву, и Екатеринбург бы долбили, нахуй, и все бы долбили.
Страшно, пиздец.
А мы, блядь, как лохи, нахуй, здесь. Да потому что командование пиздец, вот. Я не знаю, у нас пацаны уже просто сидят. Блядь, еще чуть-чуть, и мы просто встанем и сами пойдем до него.
До кого?
До комбата и просто застрелим. Тут никто разбираться не будет. Ты знаешь, какой пиздец беспредел в городах творится? Военная полиция.
See, this soldier is saying, we'll get the boys a little bit more and we will shoot our commander. This is what he's saying to his wife or girlfriend in Russia. I will shoot my commander. Can you imagine this in a NATO force? And it talks about the lawlessness. The military police recently shot gypsies, 28 people. Just put them near a wall and shot them. Sounds like Second World War, the Red Army, right? Especially in the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, it's complete anarchy. Russian forces unfortunately cannot guarantee order in those areas.
Полиция недавно, короче, цыган расстреляла 28 человек, просто к стенке поставила и расстреляла за то, что они дали водку нашим военнослужащим и отравили их на всю рот. Ебнутые государство. Как она осталась, армия ебнутая, так и она осталась. Ничего вообще не поменялось. Мы как этот, блядь, расходный материал.
We are consumables, like nothing changed. You know what changed? The Russian propaganda of 20 years, they propagandized this army as, the second army in the world, we have changed so much, we have modernized. This soldier is speaking the truth right now. It is the same like in the 90s, the Soviet army, it is nothing changed. Gypsies gave the company vodka, they drank it all, they got poisoned because the vodka was poisoned. They shot the gypsies. What a cluster, you know, cluster F.
По телеку-то пиздец другое совсем.
Yeah. On TV they say totally different things. I'm sure they do. This is why we're watching these intercepted phone calls, because it is pure truth. From one side in Russia getting the propaganda, and from another side straight from the front line. You put them together, you get this clash of two worlds. It's so weird to see. A singer from Moscow recorded a music video on the roof of the destroyed drama theater in Mariupol. About 600 people went to that theater to use it as a bomb shelter against Russian shelling of Mariupol. Russians knew that that theater is being used as a shelter for civilians. You know what they did? They targeted that theater heavily. They bombarded it until it collapsed, and about 600 people died in the basement. This theater is a graveyard, it's a place of genocide, and we have a Russian singer making a music video there. As soon as Russians took Mariupol, Putin ordered this theater to be restored, to be made beautiful. There was an issue because by that time a few weeks had passed since the taking of the city. Nobody had cleared out the bodies and it was hot. The construction company came, but it was reeking, it was stenching. Nobody wanted to move the bodies. They didn't know what to do. Putin's orders are clear, you have to do it, so what did they do? They filled the entire basement with concrete. They concreted in the bodies. This theater will haunt forever. And that was their solution. Just push it under the rock, under the concrete. 600 bodies under the concrete. You're basically washing your hands with blood at this point. My friends, this has been it for today, and I want to express my gratitude to the Patreons again. Thank you for supporting the channel, and if you like the channel, Patreon link is in the description below. If you want to listen to a podcast with Combat Veteran Reacts or Natasha's Adventures, podcast channel is also in the description below. Until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini.